Hi everybody, welcome to Fab Fit Friday. I am so happy that we're doing bodice drafting, and I really went down a rabbit hole last weekend when I tried 3 different front bodice drafts from 3 different books. So I'm going to be going over that stuff, and I'm going to show you my favorite book, and I'm going to talk about some things like pros and cons of each draft. And the more I'm working with this, I think what I might do is combine different parts of each draft to get the results I want, because there are certain things I like in each draft. I'm going to explain that to you as we work along. I just want to stop and say hi to Andrea. Andrea's early. Yay, Andrea. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Victoria. Hello. 70 degrees there. That's wonderful. We're kind of rainy, warmy, yucky. We have to get through like a week of warm to get rid of the snow and mush on the ground. So I got to do that. Our weather needs about a week to catch up to spring. Oh, hey, Karen, you've been looking forward to this. I'm so excited. And Barbara, welcome, welcome. Thank you for popping in. Definitely check the replay because it's going to be a fun one. But thank you for stopping in to visit. I really appreciate that. You know, it really warms my heart that, you know, I look forward to Fridays, you know, because I know I'm doing it. But the fact that you guys show up and like just show up to say hi if you can't stay, or come late or come early, that just warms my heart. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, Barbara. Okay, so here is what we're going to do. I am going to show you again, and I mean, I talked about these drafts during Cool Tools this week when I reviewed the books, but I just want to hit it one more time here. So I'm going to switch my view to my table shot here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, I think, so you can see this is the first draft that I want to talk about. And, you know, instead of going with the Helen Joseph Armstrong book that, you know, is a really strong, popular drafting book, especially if you're going to design school, I decided to use another book I got when I taught fashion design by Lori Knowles, Practical Guide to Pattern Making for Fashion Designers. Oh, let me just stop and say hi to Linda. Looking forward to this one too. You've spent ages trying to make a pattern and it defeats you. Well, you know what? I think I have some solutions or reasons why pattern drafting might be defeating to some people depending on their shape, because I think, you know, any drafting method of these 3 drafting methods, I'm going to show you and talk about what I think. And I also want to talk about the things that I think are causing problems for different shapes, and why different shapes can cause problems in the methods of draft. So in starting out with this one, this is really a basic classic bodice draft. You can see if I zoom in here, let me just zoom in. Oh, maybe let's make it a little brighter. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's better. I think that's sharp. Okay, so Melanie's asking me if I have a favorite book for petites. My mom and sister both are petite, and I need help drafting for petites. All right, well, I don't know that there is, I haven't come upon a book that drafts for petites, but I'm going to show you where I think drafting for the measurements that would help you drafting for petites will help you. So what I want to say here is this is like a standard college textbook draft, and it basically uses 2 different crossbody measurements to get the tip of the shoulder up here, and then also the top of the side seam / base of armhole with another sort of weird measurement. Well, it's not weird, but I think it's hard to get. So I did this one first. I followed along with it, and really and truly, it was very easy for me to follow along with this because it reminds me of, you know, working with the Helen Joseph Armstrong book. I'm just going to get behind my camera and make sure this is clear. Hold on one second. I just want to make sure you can see crisply and cleanly what I'm doing. Okay, I think you can. All right. So the problem I had with this draft, notice that my armhole versus my width is not in proportion because I have way more flat part of the armhole than I do height for the front armhole, because I think the culprit for this, and I'm just going to show you what I think the problem with this was. To get the position of the base of your armhole, what this book wants you to do is measure from the tip of your neckline down around, okay, and then around to the side seam here, top of side seam, base of armhole. And I tried doing that measurement a few different ways, and I can tell you I got a very similar measurement no matter which way I measured it. Hey Diane, welcome. Oh, hey Marianne, welcome, welcome. So basically the base of the armhole was determined by measuring whatever that measurement you got from wrapping it from your, you know, the inside shoulder down around to the top of your armhole. You pivoted your ruler, oops, wait a minute, I'm not showing you what I'm doing. You pivot your ruler from the tip of the shoulder on the draft up until it hits the measurement that you got. And I got 12 and a half inches, so it put me right here. And then when I tried to connect this area with the guideline for the armhole here, and up at the tip of the shoulder, I got this funny shape. So I decided to drop it an inch, and that made it a little better, but also not super happy with that. But just know, if you're working with a method like this and you think this is too high and you drop it, then you would drop the side seam, the bottom side seam, a like amount. So I lowered it an inch here. So I also lowered my waist here, oops, like this. So originally it was here, I lowered it 1 inch. And that's how I compensated for doing that. So that was my big issue with this. Plus also, I think this neckline is huge, 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 huge neckline. Typically, I like to see a 3-inch vertical horizontal to make the neckline. This is 4 inches. This is a big neckline. So I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna think about that. But when I measured my neckline like this, and I compared it to my ditto form, oh, you can't see what I'm doing. When I measured it like this, and then I measured my ditto form neckline, it was 5/8 of an inch too long. So that's another thing that I'm gonna think about. Okay, so that was this draft. Then I moved on to the Connie Crawford draft. Now notice, this has a nicer shaped armhole. I think I'm a little bright here. Maybe that's better. So the shape of the armhole goes from here up to here. Okay, and I think for a front armhole, that's a little big. I think that's a big armhole. The way the depth was decided on the Connie Crawford draft, and her book looks like this, was you found, excuse me, you found the halfway point, or no, I'm sorry, to get the, let me just tell us, let me find what I'm looking for here. To get the armhole length, the armhole length or the armhole level was, I believe it's, it's either halfway, underarm level, divide the center back line in half from the back neck to center back waist plus 1 inch. So it's half of the back neck to back waist plus 1 inch. So you're measuring this line from here to here, half of it plus 1 inch, so it's slightly lower than halfway to create the armhole level. So that measured, I'm just going to take a measurement here, that measures 10.5 inches. Okay, so my armhole depth on this one is 10.5 inches. And I'm guessing if I sewed this up, my armhole would be drooping down below where I would need it. But it didn't use that, it didn't use that measurement where you measured, from here around to there. It just used the vertical divided by a little bit for on the back, center back. So better armhole, but still I didn't love this. But the rest of it, I think, came out okay. So that's how that looked. Then I worked with, what I want to say, because I'm very intrigued by it, is my new favorite drafting book. And I purchased this drafting book a week ago because I'm working with a man who's doing pants fitting, and he's using this book to draft his pattern, and I wanted to have it for reference. I am so happy I purchased this book, and I've already said I'm a little annoyed that I didn't have it for the pants drafting, because just to talk about pants drafting for 1 second here, the pants draft is very cool. You draft the front leg, and then you make a copy of that front leg and you use the front copy to draft the back leg. And I'm dying to try that. So super excited about this book for pants drafting. And then when I got into the draft for the bodice, I also like some things about that as well. And I want to talk about some of the things that are in here. Let me just make this bigger so you can see it. Let me push this out of the way for a second. So this armhole looks much more reasonable to me, and it's going to need some adjusting, but I do think it's one of the closer ones. And the way you get this depth of armhole is you measure from the top vertebra of your neck, which is the base of your neck, down to your base of armhole level on your back. And I really feel like that was a great way to capture that. And then there are some calculations that you can do to get it a different way by using your bust measurement. And then you compare them and make an adjustment. And you do that for a few different things on this method. So this method uses the full bust measurement for a lot of different things, and I'm going to go through it when I show you this step by step. But basically, the full bust measurement is divided by 6 for some things. To calculate the dart, you divide the full bust measurement by 24. So I just thought this was very cool. And I'm going to show you this draft. My neckline is not as big, but it's also a little funky, but we're gonna try it. So this is what the completed front draft looks like before it's all trued up. So I've already done this once, and then I did the back already. And I'm going to go through all the steps of drafting this from the beginning, but I wanted to get the back done so I could show you and then talk about the pitfalls for it. And then also the way this book is set up, you use some of the back measurements for the front, so it's very helpful to draft the back first. Plus, this pattern is drafted in a rectangle that includes both the back and the front. So the first step of this draft is you make a vertical line from A to B that is your back, center back length, and then you go from B to C across here. That is your half bust measurement plus ease. Good morning, Karen and Mary. Good morning, Mary. Or actually, good afternoon, Mary. Good afternoon, Karen. So it's the half bust plus ease. So I added the maximum amount of ease here. I added 2 inches. So that's 4 inches of ease around my bust. I'm going to try that. It gave you a little bit of a range. I think it was up to like 1.5 to 2 inches of ease. So I added the full 2 inches. So my half bust is 22 inches plus 2 is 24 inches. So this line is 24 inches long. And then obviously C to D equals A to B. And then D to A equals B to C. So you're making a rectangle. And then you add the armhole depth. And I have 2 lines here. The green line was my body measurement. And I just want to show you this because I thought this was very clever. So if I get my ditto form over here, and if I get my tape measure, which you might think this is kind of funny. My tape measure was conveniently located around the neck of my ditto form, and then I took it off, and now I can't find it. So I'm not going to look for that. I'm just going to show you with a ruler. So what I want to show you here is this is how they have you measure for the armhole depth. Now, I like to use a thick elastic. And the reason why I like to use a thick elastic is because I think it stays more stable across the body or across your dress form. And what you want to do is you want to position the elastic so it's about 1 inch below your armpit on both sides. And notice I really don't care what the elastic is doing in the front. I don't care about that. All I care about is getting the elastic to be 1 inch below and then parallel across the back like this. Okay, so this is going to be your armhole depth, 1 inch below your armpit right here. And you just measure from here to here. Now I got 9 inches when I measured that from the top of my vertebrae down to armhole level. So that's how I measured for that. And I did it on me too. So if you use a thick elastic, you can stick the tape measure through the elastic and then hold it at the tip of your neck and then pull it taut between your finger at the top of your neck and through the elastic. And then if you use a tape measure with big numbers, you can see it in the mirror if you have a 2-mirror setup. So that's how I compared my ditto form matches the measurement I got for my body too. Now, here's the interesting thing about this. After I drew this green line at 9 inches, I also made note of the fact that there is a little chart here. All right, so there's the chart. Now this chart gives you a formula to also figure out armhole depth. And again, we're going to use the bust measurement divided by 4, and then you minus 1 inch from it. So when I divided my bust measurement by 4, I got 11, and then I minus 1 inch, I got 10 inches. So, excuse me. The instructions were, if there's a difference, there's an armhole depth adjustment here. What you do is you take half of whatever the difference is and add it to your body measurement. So I went from 9 inches to 9.5 inches. So I'm using this pink line. Now when I get over here to show you this back armhole, I had some problems with the back armhole. All right, so I want to talk about that for a second. I think part of the reason why the armhole is getting distorted is because, remember, we're using the full bust, plus I used a full inch of ease on each side. So there's an inch here and there's an inch over here. So adding like 2 inches of ease across my back really pushes this out, and it made it hard for me to hit all the goals. So when you draw your armhole, it was supposed to go from here to the top of this 2-inch diagonal, which goes all the way up to here, and then E, and then, so there's E with 1 little dash, and then there's E with 2 little dashes. You mark E, and then you mark anywhere from, hold on a second, let me tell you, E, from E to EE can be anywhere from 1 inch, I'm sorry, 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch. And I did almost 7/8. And you can see my line does not stay straight on this area. Let me just zoom in there so you can see. So see how it's already curling away, because I had to go from here, you know, I had to touch this, then I had to touch these, and then I had to go over here and touch, you know, the top of the tip of the shoulder over here. And I couldn't really make that work smoothly when I was using actually the lower, or this is the arm depth with the extra 1/2 inch. I had a really hard time. So then I went here and it's easier. So it was so when I was down here, I really couldn't get up here and then back over there. It would have made like a funky shape. Like it would have gone like, you know, it would have reached up and then it almost would have made a peak like that if I had been down here. So I'm going to have to play with that a little bit. So that's the one trouble area in this draft. But the rest of it was really, really straightforward. And let me just run through the basic steps. We drew the rectangle. Then A to I was the next step. And A to I is the bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches of ease. So again, this whole area is being, the width of this area, this box, which goes from here to here, is 1/6 of the full bust plus 1.5 inches of ease. So they are adding 3 inches of ease to this measurement. Well, 1.5 inches here, but if I folded it out, it would be, you know, it would be 3 inches. So I just went with that and I marked this area. Then you go across and once you mark this, you square down to J, and then you repeat the process over here. Okay, so drafting the upper rectangle for the neckline and shoulder in the front is the next step, and you use the A to E, A to I measurement minus 1/2 inch. So this is assuming this is going to be less broad. So I'm going with it. We'll see what happens. So basically, this ended up to be 8 3/8 from D to K, and then you square down to here, which is L. Didn't label that. So that creates the 2 rectangles to draft the top part of the back and the front bodices. And then G is the midway point. That's the other thing. G is the midway point between E and F, and that becomes your side seam. Okay, so all of this is pretty straightforward. Then, to draft the back neckline, what you do is you use your bust measurement. So again, we're using the bust measurement to figure out the back neckline. I was very intrigued by this. So you take your bust measurement and you divide it by 12. So my bust measurement divided by 12 was 3 and 5/8, and then it said to add 1/8 inch for ease. So I got 3 3/4. So from here to here was 3 3/4. And then it had you go from from A to B is 1/3. This line right here is 1/3 of the back neck, which worked out to be 1 1/4. So this is 1 1/4 high, and then you draw your back neckline. So that's how you get your back neckline. And then to get your shoulder line, what you do is you measure out from eye. So here's the eye that ended the width of the back. You extend that a 1/2 inch. So right here, so from eye to eye with a little dash or apostrophe, sorry, is 1/2 inch out, and then you square down 5/8 of an inch to eye with 2 apostrophes. So basically that's defining the slope of the shoulder. So that's the slope of the shoulder. And then you connect B to I, and that's how you get your shoulder. And then you're going to use this shoulder length for the front draft, by the way. So that's all drafted. And then to help you guide the shape of your armhole, the next step is to find the middle of from where the shoulder seam intersects I, which is C, down to G, or J, so J here. The midpoint is E. So from I to J, the midpoint is E. And then you measure down 3/4 to 1 inch to get the other E, which was right here. So I have E and E. And then you draw a diagonal guideline from J at a 45-degree angle that is half the distance of J to G. So this flat, the rest of the from G to J is half. So this is 4 inches. So this is 2 inches long. Excuse me. And so the final step to draft the back bodice is to create that armhole. Excuse me. Oh my God. Thank you, Tana. Tana sees my tape measure rolled up in a ball. Thank you for, I don't know how you could have seen that. I mean, oh yeah, see, it was right here. Thank you, Tana. That's what happens when I put things away. All right. So again, I explained in the beginning why I have these 2 armhole lines here, because I was trying to connect G to the top of the diagonal to E to I to make that shape. And I couldn't get it down here, so I went up here again. Oh, you have a cough too. Oh, the name of the pattern. All right, so this is not a pattern. I'm drafting from this book. There is a link in the description below for this book, and I will tell you I am in love with this book. I'm going to be using this book a lot. I'm very impressed, very, very impressed with this book. I'm not going to pronounce their names, but they're from Japan, and someone reached out to me and told me that injoo Kim, if that's how you pronounce it, she did a couple articles for Threads magazine that were very good on pants drafting. So really, really good techniques in here. Oh, and Elberry says, I have a cough as well, feel better. Yeah, I've been fighting this little cough thing all week. It's not, I don't feel sick, I just have a natty cough, and it's just annoying, so I apologize for that as well. Okay, so then after you finish drawing in the armhole, the next step is to start with the front draft. So we're going to do that step by step together. And the first thing we are going to do, and just to make it easier to see, I think I'm going to fold back. Let me just fold back the back draft a little bit just so I have easier paper to work with here. I think that's a little bit more reasonable. And then I'll unfold it once, you know, once I need it. I'm going to move myself over here too. Okay, so now just to remind you, we're dealing with this rectangle right here and this rectangle right here. Okay, so this and this are what we're dealing with. This is my center front right here. All right, so the first step is to, we're going to draw our back neck width plus a 1/2 inch. Now my back neck width, if we remember, was 3 1/4. So we are going to add a 1/2 inch to that. So we're going to get 3 3/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just draw myself a little dot on here. Let me just get this, you can see the area I'm working in, like right like this. I'm going to go from D to D with 1 apostrophe, 3 3/4 right here. So this is going to be D with 1 apostrophe. Now notice it's not using my center front depth, not my center front measurement from, you know, neckline to waistline. So let's just check that for ha-has. So this has me at almost 13 inches. If I compare it to my ditto form, that's about, yeah, that's really short. That's about 3 1/2 inches off from my center front length. So I'm going to have to see about that as well here. But I will tell you, we're going to be adding more length here when we add the dart. So this is not finished yet. So it's just a big difference compared to the other two drafts. Oh, bye, Victoria. Have fun in your errands. Have a wonderful day, too. So, again, this is a major difference. Most drafting has you measure from center front up to the base of the neckline to get this position of your base of your neckline right here. So that's one big difference, and I'll see how it plays out. Okay, so the next thing is we are going to square a guideline from center front out that equals the back neck width minus 1/4. So now I'm going to be doing 3 inches, and because this is a guideline, I'm going to do it in a red pen. So I'm going to square out like this, 3 inches, and that's going to be D with two apostrophes, and then M is just squared up from there. So I'm just going to square up. Now you can see using gridded paper really helps because I can follow the grid on the paper to get my lines without really worrying too much because I'm square on this grid. So this is going to be M. This is M. And then we're going to draw a line connecting M to D. So M to D, like this, is just a diagonal line. And that's just going to be a guide to help draw in the shape of the neckline. I'm going to zoom in really close so you can see the detail of working with this, since I'm using a skinnier pen here. Okay, so then after that, after you draw M, we're going to find the middle of D to M. So D to, or M to D, D to M, that measures, let's say it measures 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So 2 1/4 puts me right here. And then to give some shape to the neckline, it has you square from there 3/4 of an inch away from there. So I'm going to go ahead and make myself a 3/4 inch guide right here. Okay, so after you do that, you draft your neckline from M through this line to D. And I'm just going to kind of dash it in. Like that. And then I can use my short French curve to get the shape. Oops. Like this. Okay, so this neckline looks a little more reasonable to me compared to the other two. It doesn't look as huge. So that's how you draft the front neckline. Then after you do that, we are going to go from, we are going to do the shoulder next, and we are going to we're going to find N. N is 1.5 inches, I'm sorry, I think I need new glasses. 1 5/8 inch below K. So we're going to go ahead and make a 1 5/8 like this. I'm just going to make a dot here. All right, that's going to be N right there. And then the next step is we're going to draft a straight line from M to N. So M to N is our shoulder, like this. Now remember, we have to make this match our our back shoulder, and our back shoulder was 5 1/4. So I'm going to measure what this is here, and 5 1/4 does not make it to, I'm going to double check that. Hold on, let me just measure that again. I want to make sure. Yeah, that's 5 1/4. So my 5 1/4 puts me right here to O. So I'm not making it to the side or to this line. Now in the book, it has you extend the line out. So let's say I needed to add some, you would extend it out and you would make that O. Okay, so if you have to extend it out, you extend it out. Mine is here, which is not making it to K. So we're going to see what happens with that. Now, when I did my first draft in this book, I didn't do the back draft first, and I quickly tried to grab the back measurements, and I think I screwed some things up. So I'm considering this more correct than what I showed you in the previous one. But just to show you what I mean, when I drafted it the first time, I think I used 5 3/4. 5 5/8 was my measurement before, but you can see I had to extend it out past. But this time I'm not, and I'm just going to go with it because, like I said, I didn't do this part the first time. Like, I didn't do this first. So doing this first, I think this is correct. Okay. All right, so now we have our shoulder. And so then the next step is, the next step after doing your M to O is we are going to do front armhole, bust dart, and front length adjustment. So we're going to find the midpoint of N. Okay, this is N right here, N to L, find the midpoint. So let's go ahead and find that. Now, I have this little issue here. I'm going to go with the green line because I think that's going to work better in my front instead of the pink line. So I'm not going to use this line because that was not working in the front. So I'm going to measure from here to here, and that's 7 1/2. So that would be 3 3/4 is the middle of that. So here's my middle of N to L. And then the next thing I'm going to draw is I'm going to do a diagonal line from L out at a 45-degree angle. That's half the distance of J to G. Hold on one second. All right, so even though we're in the front armhole, it doesn't want me to find the halfway point between this. Okay, this is G to L. It wants me to use the same measurement I got when I measured between J and G. Okay, so it's using the back measurement for the front armhole. So basically, this was 2 inches. So we are going to make a L 45-degree angle that equals 1/2 of J to G minus 1/8. So it's only going to be, let me just draw my 45-degree line. It's going to be minus 1/8, so it's going to be 1 7/8. It's going to go to here. Okay, you see that? I'm going to draw that darker. I don't know if you can see, like this. So that's 1/8 of an inch shorter than the one I did in the back. And then it wants you to draft the armhole going from G through here, touch that, and go here. So that's going to be funky. Something up here is not fabulous because it wants me to go from here. This is easy, this part. From here to here to here, I can see that that's going to be pretty easy to get me from here to here to here, like this. Oops. But then it wants me to keep going over here, like this. All right, so that's what my armhole looks like. Oops. So see, I had to come in like that. I don't know about that. We're going to see. But I find that interesting that now I'm not going past here. But we will see. So that is my front armhole. Then the next step is we are going to do the bust start. So we are going to draw F to P is 1/2 bust point width. And we're going to start here and we're going to measure 1/2 of bust point width, which is bust span. And my bust span is 8.5, so it's going to be 8 1/4. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my 1, 2, 3, 4 1/4. We'll go to here. All right, that is my P right there. Then what you're going to do is you're going to draw a perpendicular line from P towards the waist. So essentially I'm going to draw a guideline like this, and I'm just going to draw it in red like that. So I'm just drawing a line down like that. So this is bust span, 1/2 of bust span. I'm just drawing a guideline down. And then I'm going to draw my bust point length measurement. So this would be from my shoulder to the position of my bust start, or where my apex is. So from my shoulder down, and mine is 12.5. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to draw a line through here like this. That goes to 12.5, which puts me way down here. And I think now you can see how short this, here's my apex, and I only have 3 inches left of my pattern. So you can see this center front is definitely not long enough for me. All right, so that's an issue with this method. But this is going to be my apex. Oops, my apex is going to be right there. Oh, actually, it wants you to follow the perpendicular line. So it's going to be, so we're going to go, that's 9 inches, 10, 11, 12 and a half. It's going to be right here. So you sort of follow this this line right here. So it doesn't go at an angle. It goes like this to here. So that's going to be my apex. So I'll just erase the rest of the line right there. Which seems really far away from here though. So see, this whole thing seems like it's not, yeah, well, we're going to see. All right, so I'm just going to do what it says. So that's my bust. This is my apex right here. Okay. Then the next step is we are going to draw the next step is we are going to draw, place ruler on M and pivot along extended guideline until bust point measurement touch guideline. All right, let me do this correctly. So I'm going to go to 12 and a half inches. I'm going to put 12 and a half inches up at the tip of my shoulder right here. So I'm at 12 and a half inches. So what you do is you slide this, wait a minute, 12 and a half inches. Okay, and then I'm just going to slide this. Well, that still ends up to be the same thing. It still works out to be the same. There's 12 and a half, and there's where I am. So you just pivot the ruler from here until it hits this guideline. I get the same answer. It's right there. Okay, sorry, I screwed that little step up, but that's how you do it. Then we're going to draft from P a perpendicular line to GH. So we're going to go all the way over here. So this is how I know this is screwed up now, because they want me to go from here to here. I'm just going to make it perpendicular to the side seam, or G. Okay, and there's no way my bust dart needs to be, 7 3/4 inches long. So we're going to have to worry about that in a little bit. Now here's the next thing that I did not agree with here. We're going to develop the waist dart. And the waist dart is, you take your bust span and you divide it by 24. And I only got 1 inch and something when I did that. So I took the executive decision here. If you look at my first draft, I used 2.5 inches instead of the 1.5 or whatever it was I got when I did that math to divide my bust measurement by 24. I decided to use 2.5 inches. And honestly, 2.5 inches is a pretty small bust dart for me. So because everything is trending really short here, I'm going to make my bust dart 3 inches. I'm going to pop that up to 3 inches because I know I need that. So I'm going to measure down 3 inches and I'm going to make a dot here, and then I'm going to connect this to here. So this is, the apex is P with a hyphen, then this is Q, and then this is Q with a hyphen here for the bottom, or the bottom bust dart, and then I'm going to connect it like this. Now I'm doing this larger dart because I know I'm then going to have to lengthen my bottom, and I'm looking here and I have just enough paper to barely make it, of course, but basically that's my bust dart. And then this equals 3 inches that I added for a bust dart, which means I have to lower my waistline 3 inches as well. And this is where I am just gonna, of course I have all this extra paper on top. So I am just gonna tape some neat paper here, and I'm going to line up my grid like this. So I'm going to line it up so it stays I'm just taping the paper on to continue the grid so I can do this neatly. I'm just adding some paper here. Like this. Okay, so now I can extend. What do with my? I'm gonna extend this down 3 inches, and then I'm gonna square across. Well, let me just extend this one down 3 inches too, and then I'm gonna. So now doing this, adding this bit over here, so see how I added 3 inches? Now my center front, my whole center front now measures 16 inches, which is much closer to my actual base of neck to waist. It's only a little short now, like less than an inch short, I think. So that definitely helped that. So that's how you develop the dart, and then you extend the bottom. And that completes that section. I am going to have to also, check my dart legs. You'll notice that this lower dart leg is going to be longer than this one because this is on an angle. So if I measure this one, it was like 7 5/8. This one's 8, like 8 1/4, 8 1/8. Okay, so I'm going to have to fix that, but I'll do that later. So the next step is we're going to work on our side seam and center back shaping and front and back waist darts. So we're going to start with the back. I'm going to go ahead and get my back and just, let me cut this extra paper off too. I don't need this. Let me just cut this off too. This is extra paper. Okay. I'm just going to put a piece of tape here just to keep this. Okay, so our first thing we're going to do here at center back is we are going to mark a hyphen from, A hyphen is going to be half of A to E. So if I measure from A to E over here, I get 9, so half is 4 1/2. So 4 1/2 is right here. Okay, that's the halfway point between A and E. Linda is at, oh, I got a few questions here. Hold on. When you pull the dart close to the center front will be longer. I wouldn't have lengthened center front. When you pull the dart to close the center front will be longer. I wouldn't have lengthened center front. Well, I see your point there. I see your point there. However, I think this wasn't lengthened. I think based on what I know from doing these other drafts, my center front is longer. I think the way they do it in this draft, part of the center front length is added after you figure out the dart. And you can't just draw a dart shape. Like I would have had to, I see what you're saying. I would have had to go from here, you know, down to the dart like this, and then there'd be a waist dart, right? And then it would go like that. Similar to this shape right here. Okay, I see what you're saying, because here's my side seam and it comes up. A lot of drafts do that. But again, here's the thing. There is no bust dart in this draft. So if I added a bust dart, this would be down here, right? I can't just draw in a dart and call it a day. I'd have to then add it back in over here. So I think this is doing it backwards from what, it's doing it backwards for what I'm used to. You know what I mean? I'm not used to not having the full center front right up front. Like, I think it was, the center front was developed in 2 steps. In the beginning, and then when you did your dart. But that is a good question. Linda says, Jen, I was wondering, the 2 inches at J is from the green line, but at L the line is from the red line. Are we not using G? The 2 inches. Oh, yeah, that's a mistake, Linda. Thank you for telling me that. So what Linda is saying is I should have gone from here. I should have gone from here. Let's just see what that looks like. I'll do it in red. So 1 7/8 puts me here. Thank you, Linda. So let's see if I can make that work. So then it's, so it would also go from here. Oh yeah, I could do that. All right, let me fix that. Linda gets a gold star for noticing that I did that. So it should be here, not here. And then it should be here. You know, and then it would be something like that, I guess. So it's not this. Now, one of the things I like about drafting with the side seam attached is that you can see the shape of the base of your armhole. Like it's right there, which I kind of think is cool. I am wondering about this not sticking out, but again, like I think I would have liked it to look like if I had my way, I would have liked to have had it be a little bit like this, you know, coming out a little bit like that. But again, I'm going to try it and see. Okay. Okay, so getting back to also, Linda, that makes me feel happy because I know you're actually watching and paying attention. You have to watch me because you never know. Sometimes I make boo-boos. Okay. All right, so getting back to here now, I found the middle of A to E. And the reason why you need that is because you're going to start to angle in your center back a little bit. Okay, you're not going to leave it straight like this. That's another thing that's different from some of these other drafts. And what it wants you to do is move it in between 1/4 and 1/2 inch from B. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to just do mine 1/4. And the reason why I'm deciding to do 1/4 versus the 1/2 inch is because I know I'm a rectangle. I don't have a defined waist, so I really don't need my pattern to come in to fit me there. So I'm just going to do 1/4, and I'm going to draw this like this. Okay, so that is my new center back. And then Karen is saying, doesn't a bust dart not go all the way to the apex it stops? Yes, we're gonna be adjusting that in a minute. That is true. Oh, Mary says nothing stronger than water, tea, or coffee when drafting. Well, I funked myself up because I gave myself 2 depth of armhole lines. Like I decided not to use this one because I was having a hard time in the back, and then I used the wrong one there. So that's why I made that boo-boo. And the pink color was going to be my final answer in my head, so that's why I got that screwed up. So sorry about that little boo-boo. I am just drinking water. Okay. So I took off a quarter over here, and I drew the straight line like this for the center back. Then we're going to go from R to H. So they also want you to angle in your side seam a little bit. And again, they say from 1/8 to 3/4. So again, I'm going to pick the smallest amount possible. I'm going to do 1/8. And I'm just going to connect my G, which is up here, not this one, to here. So I'm going to slightly angle that. Okay. And then we're going to develop the waist dart. So first I'm going to measure what I have here. Oh, let me find the middle first. So let's find the middle of, this is B apostrophe, and this is R right here. So I'm going to go ahead and measure this. That's 11.5. So that's 5.5, 5 3/4 is right here. So there's the middle of my waist. So you can see what I'm doing here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, I'm accounting for my waist divided by 4 is, my waist divided by 4 is 9 5/8. And then they want you to add 3/8 for ease. So 3/8 and 5/8 is an inch. So it's a 10 inches here. So 10 inches is what I need to have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out 5 inches over here. So from this side, I'm going to measure out 5 inches. And over here, I'm going to measure out 5 inches like this. So the space that's left over is my waist dart. And basically, you are going to draw your back waist dart. This is Q is the midpoint. And then we're going to square down from Q. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to find the midpoint of E to J. E to J over here. E to J is, I'm going to make it so it's 7.5. So 3 3/4 is right here. All right. Well, that really, okay. So my idea, now this was my idea to measure, I needed 5 inches on each side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that over to here. So basically I'm going to square down here, and I'm going to measure out the amount of my dart. I was supposed to find the middle here, not down here. So now I'm just going to say my whole dart needs to be 1.5 inches. So I'm going to do 3/4 there and 3/4 there, and then this becomes my back waist dart like this. I mean, when I was down here, I was just playing around with figuring out how much I needed for my waist measurement after I removed the tiny bit there and the tiny bit over here. So there's my waist dart and the back. Now in the front, I think we're going to essentially do a similar thing, except we're going to do C to U, waist circumference divided by 4 plus the E. So we're going to measure from C, which now has moved down here. It's 10 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that like this. Okay, so there's my 10 inches. So that's you. And then we're going to square down from P to the waist. So we're going to go ahead and square this line down from P to here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draft the waist dart intake equal to U to S. So, oh, wait a minute. I think I skipped a step. I'm sorry. I was supposed to also move this in as well. And I'm going to do the same 1/8 inch. So literally, I'm just going to slant this ever so slightly to there. Okay. And then I know this is 10 inches. That is my waist measurement. But it really needs to be my waist measurement plus my dart. So my dart is from U to my new side seam, which is right there. So that is 1.5. So I'm going to have a 1.5 inch dart here as well, like this. So here is my, all right. So you figure out your waist and you take a little bit off the side for shaping, and then the amount left over is what I use to make my waist dart. Oh, did I make that mistake again? Oh, I did. All right, I did make that mistake again. This should go up to here. You are right. It goes up to the green line. And then there's my front darts here. So now that I did all of these things, then the next thing is to true all these things up. And one of the things you do, and actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut it in half because I'm going to have to fix this over here. So I am just going to cut this in half like this, right on the line. And the reason why I'm cutting it in half is because I'm going to have to add some paper right here. And the reason why I'm going to need paper there is I'm going to fix my bust dart here. Okay, so someone had mentioned, you know, not doing your darts all the way up to the apex. But most drafting books, when you're initially drafting your darts, you do draft them up to the apex and then you back them down after. And depending on the size dart, you drop them more or less. So for me, I am going to move my dart an inch. And I'm going to find the middle here of my 3 inches. I'll do this part in green. Here's my 1.5 inches. So I'm just going to connect that with this, like this. So when I back off the tip of the dart, I'm going to measure along that green line. I'm going to get rid of 1 inch. It's going to be here. And then you redraw your legs like this. Okay. Then I'm going to measure my top dart leg. Now it's 6.5. So I'm going to measure my bottom is, we'll say it's 7 1/8. My top dart leg is 6. So I'm going to make this one 7 1/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting the ruler there and I'm going to extend this out to 7 1/8 like this. And then I'm going to just take this and I'm going to move it like this. Okay. And this is because I have a big bust, right? So I'm extending that out so it equals, you know, my bottom measurement. Like that. You know, and of course when I fold this, like this on the green. So if I fold this and I bring it up to here, right, and you can see now that lines up. Now, obviously, if I take the time to fold it, you can see I'm getting this, oops, hold on. I'm getting this nice, see that cup shape I'm getting. But if I use my tracing wheel and just draw through the actual side seam like this, and then pop it open, my actual dart is going to look like this. All right, so that finishes that shape. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my lower waist dart. I mean my front waist dart. I'm just going to drop that an inch. Now, if you're working with an A or B cup, you might only want to drop it, 3/8 or a 1/2 inch. And a C could be 1/2 inch. A D could be like 5/8. And again, if I wanted to fold this, I could get the shape of the dart here. So if I just fold this shut, and then just trace across, it's going to make a slight dip out like this. And that's the bottom of my dart. Oh, the redraw of the bust dart is so helpful. I too have a big bust. Okay, so I just want to point out sometimes when you do this, depending on the angle of your dart legs, you may actually be lengthening and pushing out the bottom, not the top. So if you fold yours and you realize, or if your top dart leg is longer than your bottom one, you would pop it out down here. So just keep an eye on that. Sometimes that happens. But that's what I have, and that is my completed front. Now in the back, all I have to do is, fold this. Oops. And then that brings up another good point. Your draft is most likely going to look much different than mine because of our shapes. Like if you have a smaller bust, or you're more slender, or if you have a defined waist, all of those things are going to change your the shape of your draft. So I'm sorry that I'm showing you what the shape looks like for my shape, but I feel like I think these are good steps. I really like this drafting book. But again, just like anything else, or the other first two that I showed you, there are parts and pieces that are more accurate than others depending on what's happening. So, okay, I don't need this paper on here. All right, so there's my front draft. And there's my back draft. All right, and it's from Apparel Design Through Patternmaking. Okay. All right, so what is our schedule going to be? Our schedule is going to be next Friday, I will have sewn up this draft. I want to test it. And I'm going to be sharing another drafting book next week. I'm going to draft another step-by-step. And I'm kind of excited about it. I'm going to show you. I'm going back to a vintage book now. This book, Personal Patterns by Ginny. And let me just show you here why I'm excited about this. So this book, the draft, is a torso. And it's very different from the draft that we just did. It's very different. So we are going to be drafting. Where's the draft? Hold on, I want to show you the draft that I want to do in this book. Where is the finished draft? Oh. Well, the pictures in here are not super excited, but I am going to be showing how to do it in here. And I believe I saw in here a torso draft, unless I was hallucinating. So, well, to be determined, but I do want to try in this book because it's different. The other book I'm going to be using is this Pattern Cutting Made Easy book. I'm going to draft out of this as well. Now, this has got very brief instructions. So just to show you, the bodice draft in this book is very simple. And instead of just a waist dart or a waist and bust dart, it's got a shoulder dart and a waist dart. So I'm excited to try this as well. So I'm going to be working in this book, and I'm going to try this book, I believe. So that's where we're going. Let me just see here. Oh wait, so wait, I think we have some new comments here. Jen, have you draped then made a flat pattern off of your ditto form? Would it make interesting comparisons among all the formulas and techniques? Yes, I have drafted. I drafted and it's on my thing, step by step, how to make a non-stretch cover for this. And then I put it on me and it fit very closely. And then I also drafted in half scale. I made it 200% bigger and put it on my full-size ditto form and it fit. So I will be comparing that as well. I do know that some people prefer to drape versus flat pattern draft the bodice. So I will be including, one of my Fab Fit Fridays will be a comparison between those two things. You know, and of course, because I'm doing bodice drafting, I would love to talk about ditto form. I really feel like, you know, having a ditto form, I mean, they are expensive, but they are, I mean, I can't imagine doing all the things I do without it for fitting for myself, because my measurements on my ditto form and my measurements on me are almost identical. So I just use my ditto form to measure. I use my ditto form to fit, and it saves me a ton of time. And now Carol is offering the half scale version. You don't have to get the full version to get the half version, but all you need to do is design on here and then blow up your pattern pieces 200%, and it is your size. So, and I've tested it, so I know it works. But I definitely will be including information about that as well. But oh, Danielle says top dart and bottom dart look suspiciously like princess seams. Well, that's how you develop a princess seam. You rotate the bust dart to the shoulder and then you make a princess seam. Or you rotate half of the waist dart to the shoulder and you make a princess seam. So I'll be talking about that as well. And then let me just say something here. If anyone's, Patricia has a good tip. If anyone's interested in purchasing the Apparel Design book, I was able to find an ebook version from Premium JS. It was a lot cheaper than I could find anywhere else. All right, Premium GS, is that the name of the website, Pat? And then, okay, so Let me just see. I'm just going to look here. Premium JS. Hold on one second. I'm going to look for that. It is an expensive book, although I wouldn't want an ebook. But if you like an ebook, Premium GS. Oh, hold on one second here. All right, hold on. Oh. I tried to copy paste Premium JS into my search, and it copy pasted something else. All right, I'll search into that more later, but if that's the case, I will post a link to it in the comments below the video if I can find it, because if people want to save money and get an ebook, I want to help you do that. So thank you so much for sharing that, Pat. All right, let me see, one more question. Karen said, in the future, could you show how to use these drafts to alter commercial patterns or make other garments from these drafts? Okay, so like I did with my pants draft, fit, and design, I used one of the drafts to design a new pants pattern. If you remember, I have them right here. I drafted a 3-leg pant, if you remember, my Arizona pant, and I wore them in Arizona and I love them. So I will be using the draft to design something at the end. I'll pick my favorite draft that fits the best after I fit it, and we will be drafting something. I don't know that I don't think I would combine a draft with a commercial pattern though, because the whole purpose of drafting a bodice is so you have a pattern. I mean, you could use it as a base to design new styles though. So, but I will be definitely designing with it, Karen. Oh, DIYer girls checking in. She says, I was in the background today. Lovely, simple sharing time with you. Have a great weekend. Well, I love it that you were in the background hanging out with me. I miss you. I really wish I could get back to Puyallup. I just can't seem to get that back in my schedule in a reasonable way. But in any case, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me today. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Next week, I will be sharing the new drafting book and the draft, and I will show you how this bodice fits me next week too, on Friday. So it's going to be a fun week next week. I hope you guys are drafting, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. So thank you guys so much, and I'm going to sign off now. Have a great rest of your weekend. Okay, bye.